If she's standing at the front tonight, I'm leaving, someone whispered, and the laughter that followed rolled through the Moon Selection Festival like a cold wind. Evelyn Hart pretended she hadn't heard it. She kept her eyes lowered as she stood near the back of the grand hall, her hands folded tightly in front of her simple blue dress. Around her, hundreds of crystal lanterns floated beneath the vaulted ceiling, bathing the room in silver light. The scent of pine, cedar, and expensive perfume filled the air. Every unmated Omega in Northern Ridge had dreamed of this night. Every Omega except Evelyn, because unlike the others, she already knew how the evening would end. The nobles ignored her. The young alphas looked through her as if she were invisible. Even the servants seemed embarrassed whenever she passed. "Move farther back," a woman muttered as she brushed past. "You're blocking the view." Evelyn stepped aside immediately. She always did. It was easier that way. Easier than arguing. Easier than watching people exchange uncomfortable glances whenever they remembered she existed. At 22 years old, Evelyn carried a reputation she had never earned. Weak Omega. Useless Omega. The girl with no future. The girl nobody would ever choose. A burst of laughter erupted nearby. 3 elegantly dressed Omegas stood beside one of the marble columns, pretending not to stare at her. "Can you imagine if the Alpha King noticed her?" one said. "I'd assumed the Moon Goddess had gone blind." More laughter followed. Evelyn forced herself to keep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Her grandmother had taught her that years ago. When the world became too loud, focus on the next breath. The next step. The next sunrise. She repeated the lesson silently while musicians played a graceful melody across the ballroom. Tonight, Alpha King Lucian Blackwood was expected to appear and announce the beginning of a royal courtship season. Every family in the territory wanted to impress him. Every hopeful Omega dreamed of becoming Luna someday. Evelyn had stopped dreaming a long time ago. Across the room, she noticed her father standing among several pack leaders. For a moment, hope flickered inside her chest. Maybe he would look her way. Maybe he would smile. Maybe just once he would seem proud that she was his daughter. Instead, she watched him shake his head as one of the men gestured toward her. "Still keeping her around?" the man asked. Her father laughed quietly. Then came the words that froze the air in her lungs. "What choice do I have?" he replied. If fate had been kinder, she would have been born someone else entirely. The men chuckled. Evelyn's vision blurred. She quickly turned away before anyone noticed the tears gathering in her eyes. The music continued. The lanterns glowed. The festival carried on as if nothing had happened. But deep inside, something cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for her to realize she could no longer stand there pretending she belonged. Without a word, Evelyn slipped through the crowd and headed toward the palace doors. Behind her, the celebration grew louder. Ahead of her, the moonlit forest waited in silence. And for the first time all night, it felt more welcoming than home. The night air felt colder than it should have as Evelyn stepped beyond the palace gates and onto the winding stone path leading toward the forest. Behind her, music drifted through the darkness, faint and distant now, as if it belonged to another world entirely. She wrapped her arms around herself and kept walking. The silver moon hung high above the towering pines, casting pale light across the valley. Normally, she loved the forest at night. It was the one place where nobody expected anything from her. Trees did not judge. Rivers did not whisper. The stars never laughed. Tonight, however, even the familiar comfort of the woods could not quiet the ache in her chest. Her father's words repeated over and over in her mind. If fate had been kinder, she would have been born someone else entirely. Evelyn swallowed hard and quickened her pace. She did not realize how far she had wandered until the sounds of the festival disappeared completely. Only the gentle rustling of leaves remained. Then she heard something else. A soft cry. She stopped instantly. The sound came again. Weak. Frightened. Alone. Evelyn turned toward the source and moved carefully between the trees. Branches brushed against her sleeves as she followed the noise deeper into the forest. The cry grew louder. A few moments later, she reached a small clearing illuminated by moonlight. What she saw made her heart tighten. Curled beside a fallen log was a young wolf pup. Its silver-white fur was damp from the evening dew, and one of its front paws appeared injured. The tiny creature tried to stand when it saw her, but immediately stumbled back onto the grass. "Oh no," Evelyn whispered. She slowly lowered herself to her knees a few feet away. It is all right. I am not going to hurt you. The pup watched her with unusually bright golden eyes. Fear lingered there, but so did trust. Evelyn extended her hand. After a moment of hesitation, the little wolf limped forward and gently pressed its nose against her fingers. A small smile appeared on her face for the first time that evening. There you are, she said softly. You are brave, are you not? The pup released a quiet whine. Evelyn carefully examined its paw. The injury was not severe, but it had clearly been struggling for hours. Without thinking, she placed both hands around the tiny leg. Warmth immediately spread through her palms. The familiar sensation surprised her. She had hidden this gift her entire life. Whenever someone was hurt, a strange warmth answered her concern. She never understood why. She only knew it frightened people when they saw it. Tonight, there was nobody watching. The golden warmth flowed gently into the injured paw. The pup relaxed almost instantly. Its breathing slowed. Its trembling stopped. After several seconds, it carefully placed weight on the leg and stood without difficulty. Evelyn stared in disbelief. The wolf pup blinked at her, then happily circled around her feet. A laugh escaped her lips. For a brief moment, all her sadness vanished. She did not notice the tall figure standing motionless among the shadows beyond the clearing. She did not see the silver eyes watching everything. And she certainly did not know that the small wolf she had just saved belonged to the most powerful man in the Northern Territories. The wolf pup trotted happily around Evelyn's feet, as if it had forgotten it had ever been hurt. Moonlight shimmered across its silver-white fur while it chased falling leaves through the clearing. Evelyn watched with a smile she had not felt in years. For once, nobody was judging her. Nobody was whispering behind her back. It was only her and the tiny creature beneath the stars. You are feeling much better now, she said softly. The pup immediately returned and pressed against her leg. Its tail wagged so enthusiastically that she laughed again. The sound surprised her. Laughter had become rare in her life. The little wolf tilted its head as though it enjoyed hearing it. I wish things were that simple for me, Evelyn admitted. The words escaped before she could stop them. She sat on the fallen log and looked up at the night sky. You probably do not care about any of this, do you? The pup climbed beside her anyway. Everyone always says I am weak. Maybe they are right. The forest remained silent except for the distant rustling of leaves. Evelyn gently stroked the wolf's fur. I try to help people. I really do. But no matter what I do, it never seems to matter. Her chest tightened as memories from the festival returned. The laughter, the whispers, her father's voice. She lowered her eyes. Maybe some people are simply born to be overlooked. The pup suddenly placed a paw on her arm. Evelyn blinked. Or maybe you disagree. A faint smile returned. The tiny gesture felt strangely comforting. Unknown to her, the man hidden among the trees had not looked away for a single second. Alpha King Lucian Blackwood stood motionless in the shadows, his silver eyes fixed on the young Omega. He had followed the trail of his missing son for nearly 2 hours. When he finally found the boy, he expected to discover danger. Instead, he found something far more surprising. Kindness. Genuine kindness. No titles. No rewards. No audience. The Omega had helped his son when she believed nobody was watching. That alone was rare. Yet what unsettled Lucian most was the golden glow he had witnessed moments earlier. Healing abilities were almost unheard of, especially among ordinary wolves. His son suddenly bounded away from Evelyn and raced toward the edge of the clearing. Wait, Evelyn called, rising quickly. The pup disappeared between the trees. She hurried after him, worried he might become lost again. A few moments later she stopped. The little wolf stood beside a massive black horse tied near the forest path. Where did you come from? Evelyn whispered. Before she could take another step, the horse lowered its head respectfully toward someone standing nearby. A tall figure emerged from the darkness. Evelyn froze. The stranger wore a dark coat that moved gently in the night breeze. His posture was calm, confident, impossible to ignore. Moonlight revealed sharp features and silver eyes that seemed almost unreal. The pup immediately ran to him. The man rested a hand on the animal's head without breaking eye contact with Evelyn. A strange silence settled between them. Then his deep voice cut softly through the night. I believe, he said, you have just saved someone very important to me. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The stranger's voice was calm, yet it carried a quiet authority that immediately made the forest feel smaller. She glanced from him to the wolf pup, who now sat proudly at his side as though he belonged there. "I only helped because he looked frightened," she said softly. "Anyone would have done the same." The man's expression shifted slightly. It was not quite a smile, but something close to one. "You may be the first person tonight to believe that." Evelyn frowned. There was something familiar about him. Not his face exactly, but the feeling that surrounded him. Confidence. Strength. The kind of presence people noticed the moment he entered a room. Yet unlike everyone at the festival, he was looking directly at her. Not through her. Not around her. At her. It felt strangely unsettling. "Is he your wolf?" she asked. The pup immediately nudged the man's hand. "Something like that," he replied. Evelyn nodded, uncertain. Silence settled between them again. The horse shifted nearby, and somewhere in the distance an owl called through the trees. "His paw was injured," Evelyn explained. "I was worried he would not make it back alone." The man's silver eyes studied her carefully. "And yet you stayed." Evelyn looked away. "I know what it feels like to be left behind." The words escaped before she could stop them. Heat rushed to her cheeks. She hated sounding vulnerable in front of strangers. But when she risked another glance, she found no mockery in his expression, only understanding. "Then perhaps he was fortunate to find you." Her heart stumbled unexpectedly. Nobody ever said things like that to her. Not sincerely. Not without wanting something in return. The pup suddenly bounded between them and circled Evelyn's legs again. The man watched with mild amusement. "He seems attached." "Animals usually like me more than people do," she admitted. That earned the faintest smile from him. For a brief second, his entire face changed. The stern distance softened. He looked younger somehow, more human. Then the moment disappeared. "What is your name?" he asked. Evelyn hesitated. Most people already knew her name for all the wrong reasons. Evelyn Hart. The man's gaze sharpened almost imperceptibly. He recognized it. She could tell. Yet he revealed nothing. "Evelyn," he repeated, as though testing the sound of it. "And yours?" she asked. The question lingered in the cool night air. For a moment she thought he might refuse to answer. Instead he said, "Lucian. Just Lucian. No family name. No title. Nothing more." The wolf pup suddenly leaned against Evelyn again. She laughed quietly and scratched behind his ears. Neither she nor the pup noticed the approaching footsteps until voices echoed from the distant path. "Search the eastern trails. The prince must be somewhere nearby." Evelyn froze. Several lantern lights flickered through the trees. The stranger's expression immediately became unreadable. The wolf pup trotted back to his side. The approaching voices grew louder. Then one of the guards emerged into the clearing and immediately dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty," the man said. Evelyn's entire world seemed to stop. She stared at the stranger beside the black horse. The silver eyes, the impossible presence, the respect in the guard's voice. Suddenly, every piece fell into place. Her pulse thundered in her ears as realization struck. The man she had been speaking to beneath the moon was not an ordinary traveler. He was Alpha King Lucian Blackwood. Evelyn could not move. The words "Your Majesty" echoed through her mind while the guard remained kneeling before the man she had met beneath the moonlight. Heat rushed to her face. Every conversation replayed instantly. She had spoken to him as if he were an ordinary traveler. She had admitted her fears. She had confessed things she had never told anyone. And somehow the Alpha King had listened. The forest suddenly felt very quiet. Lucian Blackwood remained calm as he looked at the kneeling guard. "You found him," the guard said, glancing toward the silver-white wolf pup. Relief flooded his voice. Several more royal guards entered the clearing moments later. The little wolf immediately trotted toward them, earning smiles from men who looked far too serious for such expressions. Evelyn watched the scene unfold in stunned silence. Then another realization struck her. The prince. The guard had called the pup the prince. Her eyes widened as she looked down at the small wolf. The pup stared back and wagged his tail. "You are the prince," she whispered. The little wolf looked entirely pleased with himself. Lucian's expression softened slightly. "Crown Prince Rowan has a habit of wandering where he should not." Evelyn blinked. "Rowan." The pup barked once as if introducing himself properly. To her surprise, she laughed. The tension eased just enough for her to breathe again. One of the guards stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the entire palace has been searching for him." Lucian nodded. "The search is over." His gaze shifted toward Evelyn. The simple movement made every guard in the clearing look at her. Suddenly, she became painfully aware of her worn dress, her tangled hair, and the fact that she was standing in front of the most powerful wolves in the Northern Territories. She lowered her eyes instinctively. The familiar feeling returned. The feeling of being small, unimportant, easy to dismiss. But Lucian's next words shattered that expectation. The prince was found because of her. The clearing fell silent. Every guard looked at Evelyn differently now. Not with ridicule, not with pity, with respect. She did not know what to do with that. I only helped, she said quietly. Anyone would have done the same. Lucian studied her for several seconds. No, he said. Not everyone would have. Something about the certainty in his voice made her heart tighten. For years she had heard only criticism. Hearing someone defend her felt almost unreal. The prince suddenly trotted back to Evelyn and leaned against her leg. Several guards exchanged surprised glances. One even raised an eyebrow. Apparently the young prince was not known for trusting strangers so quickly. Lucian noticed it as well. For a brief moment, an unreadable look crossed his face. Then he stepped closer. Evelyn Hart. Hearing her name spoken by the Alpha King himself felt strange. Yes, Your Majesty. Tomorrow morning, a royal carriage will arrive at your home. Her breath caught. Why? Lucian's silver eyes held hers beneath the moonlit sky. Because there are things about tonight that I intend to understand. Before Evelyn could ask another question, the prince brushed against her one final time and then returned to his father's side. As the royal party prepared to leave, she stood frozen among the trees, watching them disappear into the darkness. And for the first time in her life, she realized that someone powerful had finally noticed she existed. Sleep never came easily that night. Evelyn lay awake staring at the ceiling of her small bedroom while moonlight spilled through the window. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw silver eyes beneath the trees. She heard the words again. A royal carriage will arrive at your home. By sunrise, the entire house had already heard the news. Not because Evelyn had told anyone, because royal messengers moved faster than rumors. She stepped into the kitchen and immediately felt the difference. Her father sat at the table in stunned silence. Her older cousin Rebecca stared openly. Even the neighbors gathered outside the front gate pretending they had reasons to pass by. Nobody knew exactly why the Alpha King had taken an interest in Evelyn Hart, and that uncertainty made everyone nervous. What happened? Rebecca asked for the third time. Did you speak with him? Evelyn hesitated. Only briefly. Briefly. Rebecca nearly laughed. People wait their entire lives hoping to meet him. Evelyn looked down at her breakfast untouched on the table. She wished everyone would stop staring at her. The attention felt almost as uncomfortable as the ridicule had. Outside, voices suddenly erupted. Hooves echoed across the road. A moment later, a magnificent black carriage bearing the royal crest appeared beyond the gate. The entire neighborhood seemed to stop breathing. Evelyn's father rose so quickly that his chair nearly tipped over. For years he had barely looked at her. Now he was smoothing his coat and trying to appear respectable. The sight hurt more than she wanted to admit. A royal attendant stepped down from the carriage and approached the house. Miss Evelyn Hart, he announced. His Majesty requests your presence at Blackwood Palace. Requests, not commands. Yet everyone understood refusal was impossible. Evelyn's pulse raced as she followed the attendant toward the carriage. Dozens of curious eyes followed her every step. The journey to the palace took nearly an hour. Endless forests rolled past the windows before towering stone walls finally appeared on the horizon. Blackwood Palace rose above the valley like something from a dream. Silver banners moved in the wind. Crystal towers reflected the morning sunlight. Evelyn had never seen anything so beautiful. She suddenly felt very small. The palace gates opened. Servants greeted her. Guards escorted her through vast hallways lined with portraits of kings and queens. Every step deepened her anxiety. Why was she really here? The answer came sooner than expected. She was led into a private chamber overlooking the northern mountains. Standing beside the window was Lucian Blackwood. His presence filled the room instantly. Yet it was not the Alpha King who captured Evelyn's attention first. It was Crown Prince Rowan. The young wolf immediately raced toward her the moment she entered. His tail wagged so enthusiastically that Evelyn laughed despite herself. Rowan pressed against her leg happily. Lucian watched the interaction in silence. Then he spoke. He has refused breakfast. Evelyn blinked. What? Until now. She looked down. Sure enough, Rowan was carrying a small royal napkin in his mouth as though proudly proving the point. A reluctant smile appeared on Lucian's face. For reasons I do not yet understand, my son seems to trust you completely. Evelyn knelt beside Rowan and gently scratched behind his ears. The prince immediately relaxed. The room fell quiet. Then Lucian's expression became serious once more. There is another reason I asked you here. Evelyn slowly stood. Something in his voice changed. Whatever came next was important. Last night, Lucian said, I saw a golden light surrounding Rowan's injured paw. I want you to tell me the truth about how you healed him. For several seconds, Evelyn could not answer. The question hung between them while Rowan rested comfortably against her side. She lowered her eyes to the polished floor. I do not know how to explain it, she admitted quietly. It has always been there. Lucian remained silent, allowing her to continue. When someone is hurting, sometimes I can feel it. Not exactly their pain, more like an echo of it. And when I try to help, warmth appears. She looked at her hands. I learned very young not to talk about it. Why? Lucian asked. Evelyn gave a small, humorless smile. Because people do not trust things they do not understand. Memories surfaced immediately. Villagers exchanging uneasy glances. Children being pulled away whenever she accidentally soothed an injured animal. Adults whispering that something about her felt different. Strange. Wrong. Eventually, I stopped mentioning it. Rowan nudged her hand. She absent-mindedly scratched behind his ears. The prince immediately relaxed again. Lucian observed everything. Every movement. Every reaction. Nothing escaped him. Has anyone else witnessed this ability? He asked. Evelyn hesitated. Not intentionally. Before she could continue, a sharp knock sounded at the chamber door. A royal advisor entered carrying several documents. He bowed respectfully to Lucian. Your Majesty, the council has assembled. Lucian accepted the papers without looking away from Evelyn. The advisor followed his gaze and finally noticed her. Recognition immediately appeared on his face. Miss Hart. The greeting sounded polite, but something beneath it felt colder. Calculating. Evelyn instantly became uncomfortable. The advisor continued. The council is already discussing the unusual reports from last night. Her stomach tightened. Reports. Lucian's expression darkened slightly. Explain. The advisor cleared his throat. Several witnesses from the festival have come forward. Evelyn felt dread settle inside her chest. Witnesses rarely brought good news where she was concerned. And? Lucian asked. Some claim Miss Hart has been misleading people for years regarding her abilities. The room fell silent. Evelyn stared in disbelief. What? The advisor continued carefully. Others claim she has been secretly using unusual gifts to gain favor and attention. Evelyn's face went pale. That is not true. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. The familiar feeling returned. The feeling she knew too well. Someone else controlling the story. Someone else deciding who she was before she could speak for herself. Rowan immediately moved closer and pressed against her leg. Lucian noticed. So did the advisor. The prince's protective behavior made the accusation look even weaker. Yet doubt had already entered the room. Evelyn hated that she recognized it. She had lived with it her entire life. The advisor lowered his voice. The council believes further investigation would be wise. Lucian's silver eyes became unreadable. Evelyn could not tell what he was thinking. That frightened her more than anger would have. She looked down at her hands again. For one brief moment, she had believed things might finally be changing. Now the whispers were beginning all over again. Different building, different people, same judgment, same suspicion, same loneliness. And somewhere deep inside, the fragile hope she had carried into the palace began to crack. The council chamber was larger than Evelyn expected. Sunlight streamed through towering windows while nobles, advisors, and pack leaders filled the room with quiet conversation. The moment she entered beside Lucian, dozens of eyes turned toward her. Some were curious. Others were skeptical. A few were openly dismissive. Evelyn immediately wished she could disappear. The advisor from earlier stepped forward. Your Majesty, the witnesses have arrived. Several people entered from the far side of the chamber. To Evelyn's shock, she recognized them. 2 women from the festival. A merchant from Northern Ridge. Even a distant relative she barely knew. One by one they began speaking. Some claimed she had hidden special abilities for years. Others suggested she had manipulated situations to make herself appear kind and generous. Each accusation felt heavier than the last. Evelyn stood silently while the room filled with opinions about a life none of them truly understood. Her hands trembled at her sides. Then a new voice interrupted the discussion. That is not what happened. The room fell silent. Everyone turned toward the speaker. An elderly palace healer stepped forward from the back of the chamber. I have spent 40 years studying healing gifts, she said. If Miss Hart possessed this ability for personal gain, there would be evidence everywhere. Instead, I found the opposite. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The healer continued. I spoke with villagers this morning. Injured animals recovered after she cared for them. Sick children slept peacefully after she sat beside them. Elderly residents described unexplained improvements whenever she visited. The woman looked directly at Evelyn, and she never accepted payment. The chamber grew quieter. Another voice rose. A baker from Northern Ridge stepped forward. My daughter was frightened of storms for years. Miss Hart stayed with her every summer until she felt safe. Then another person spoke. And another. Stories began appearing from every corner of the room. Small acts of kindness. Quiet sacrifices. Moments nobody had noticed because nobody had cared enough to look. Evelyn stood frozen. She had never known these people remembered. Across the chamber, Lucian watched everything. The accusations that had seemed convincing only an hour earlier were unraveling completely. Not because Evelyn defended herself, because others were finally telling the truth. Then the doors opened once more. Crown Prince Rowan raced into the chamber, ignoring every royal protocol in existence. Laughter rippled through the room as he ran straight past nobles and advisors before stopping beside Evelyn. The young prince pressed himself against her leg and refused to move. Several council members exchanged surprised glances. The palace healer smiled knowingly. Animals sense character better than most people. More laughter followed. This time it was warm. Not cruel. Not mocking. Warm. Evelyn felt something shift inside her chest. For the first time in years, people were not looking at her as a problem to solve or a mistake to tolerate. They were seeing her. Truly seeing her. Lucian slowly rose from his seat. Instantly the chamber fell silent again. His silver eyes swept across the gathered crowd before settling on Evelyn. It appears, he said calmly, that Northern Ridge failed to recognize one of its finest hearts. No one argued, because for the first time, the truth was impossible to ignore. The days that followed changed everything. News traveled across the Northern Territories faster than winter winds. The forgotten Omega from Northern Ridge had become a frequent guest of Blackwood Palace. People who once ignored Evelyn suddenly remembered her name. People who once laughed now spoke carefully whenever she was mentioned. Yet the greatest change was not happening around her. It was happening within her. For the first time in her life, she no longer woke each morning wondering whether she mattered. She spent her days helping palace healers, caring for injured animals, and reading ancient records alongside scholars who were fascinated by her unusual gift. The more she learned, the more extraordinary the truth became. Her ability was not a mistake. It was not something to hide. It was a rare blessing connected to an ancient line of Luna queens that had disappeared generations ago. When the palace historians revealed the records, even they struggled to believe it. Meanwhile, Crown Prince Rowan became her constant companion. Wherever Evelyn went, the young prince followed. Gardens, libraries, training fields, it made no difference. His loyalty never wavered. And with every passing week, Lucian found himself watching her more closely. Not because of her gift, not because of the ancient bloodline, but because she remained the same person she had always been. Kind when nobody was watching, humble when praised, gentle when others expected her to seek revenge. Then came the winter moon ceremony, the most important gathering of the year. Thousands filled the palace grounds. Nobles, pack leaders, merchants, and citizens arrived from every corner of the kingdom. Evelyn stood quietly beside the royal family, still uncomfortable with so many eyes on her. Then the High Elder stepped forward carrying a silver crown unlike any seen in centuries. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The ancient crown belonged to the Luna queens of old. Most believed it was nothing more than a legend. The elder's voice echoed across the great hall. For generations, we searched for the one worthy of carrying this legacy. Silence fell. Today, that search ends. Evelyn's heart pounded. She looked toward Lucian. He offered a small, reassuring nod. The elder approached her. The silver crown seemed to glow beneath the moonlight pouring through the glass ceiling above. Evelyn Hart, he declared, your compassion united hearts. Your courage endured hardship. Your kindness remained unchanged even when the world offered little kindness in return. By the authority of the ancient traditions and with the blessing of the kingdom, you are recognized as Luna Queen. The hall erupted with applause. Evelyn could barely breathe. Tears filled her eyes as the crown settled gently upon her head. She looked out across the crowd and saw faces she never expected to see again. Former critics, former doubters, even her father. Many lowered their eyes in shame. But Evelyn did not feel anger. She did not feel triumph. She only felt peace. Then something unexpected happened. Lucian stepped forward and bowed his head before her. The room fell silent once more. The Alpha King of the Northern Territories lowered himself in respect before the woman everyone had once dismissed. Your Majesty, he said softly. The words carried through the hall. And in that moment, every person present understood the truth. Real strength had never belonged to the loudest voices, the wealthiest families, or the most powerful titles. It had always lived quietly inside the heart of the girl they failed to see. And beneath the silver glow of the winter moon, the Omega everyone once overlooked finally stood exactly where destiny had intended all along.